The envelope was white, plain white, the kind you could buy at any drugstore for $2. But inside that envelope was everything. $847. 11 months of work. Every penny saved from bookkeeping jobs done late at night when her father was passed out on the couch. Every dollar earned from filing taxes for elderly neighbors who paid her in crumpled bills and homemade cookies. Every cent she'd hidden away while the world kept spinning and she kept surviving. Halfway to freedom. Halfway to a wheelchair that could handle Oklahoma's broken sidewalks and dirt roads. Halfway to independence. Sloan Harper sat outside Dusty Trail's diner, her hands gripping the envelope like it might disappear if she loosened her hold. 19 years old, 3 years in a wheelchair, 3 years since the night her mother's blood had soaked into her clothes while she screamed for help that came too late. The morning sun painted the diner's windows gold. Through the grease-smeared glass, she could see families eating breakfast, truckers hunched over coffee, normal people living normal lives. She used to be one of them. Before the accident, before the wheelchair, before her mother's coffin disappeared into Oklahoma clay, before she became the girl everyone pitied and no one helped. Sloan drew a breath, the kind that hurt, the kind that came before doing something that terrified you. She pushed open the diner door. The bell jingled. Heads turned. A dozen pairs of eyes landing on her like judgments. She kept her gaze forward, jaw-tight wheels squeaking against linoleum that had seen better decades. "Morning, sweetheart?" Rita appeared beside her coffee pot, already in hand. 60-something tired eyes smile that never quite reached them anymore. But genuine. In a town where genuine was rare as rain in August, Rita's kindness meant everything. "The usual spot?" Sloan nodded, couldn't trust her voice yet. "Your mama's booth is open. I kept it clear for you." The words landed somewhere deep. Your mama's booth. 3 years and Rita still remembered. Still honored the woman who'd sat in that corner booth every Sunday for 15 years, ordering the same pancakes, leaving the same generous tip, never knowing she had less than 2 decades left. Sloan wheeled herself toward the back, past the counter where men argued about cattle prices, past the family with 3 kids who stared openly until their mother hissed at them, past the booth where Pastor Merrick sat reading his Bible, eyes flicking up, then quickly away. She'd learned not to expect eye contact. People were uncomfortable around wheelchairs, around visible evidence that bad things happen to good people, around the reminder that life could shatter in 1 second of twisted metal and screaming brakes. The transfer from wheelchair to booth seat took 30 seconds. 30 seconds of awkward maneuvering while the diner pretended not to watch. Sloan had done this 1,000 times. It never got easier. Never stopped feeling like a performance she hadn't auditioned for. Rita set down a menu without hovering, without offering help Sloan hadn't asked for. Small kindness, profound respect. "Short stack extra butter," you remembered. Your mama ordered the same thing for 15 years. Rita's voice softened. "Some things stick." She walked away, and Sloan was alone with the envelope and the memories and the ghost of a woman who used to sit across from her in this exact booth, laughing at something stupid, making the world feel safe. The envelope felt heavy in her jacket pocket. She pulled it out, ran her fingers over the slight bulge, counted the months in her head. 11 down, 12 to go. Then she'd have the wheelchair that could handle real terrain. That could give her actual independence. That could make her feel less like she was asking the world for permission to exist. The door opened, the bell jingled, and everything changed. "Well, look what rolled in." Sloan's stomach dropped. She knew that voice. Everyone in Cedar Creek knew that voice. Everyone who'd ever been weak or different or in the way. Cole Morrison stood at the entrance, his arm draped around a blonde girl in designer jeans. 2 friends flanked him, all 3 already snickering. All 3 looking at Sloan like she was something amusing they'd found in the road. 22 years old, mayor's son, never worked a day in his life. Rich enough to believe consequences were for other people. Cruel enough to enjoy breaking them. "Hey, Bree, check it out." Cole's voice carried across the diner loud enough to make sure everyone heard. "It's the cripple." Sloan's fingers tightened around the envelope. Don't react. Don't give him anything. 3 years of practice keeping her face blank. 3 years learning that showing pain only fed predators like Cole Morrison. Remember her? Cole continued performing for the audience that was definitely watching now. She's the one whose mom died because she was too slow to get out of the car. The words sliced through Sloane like razors, sharp, precise, designed to hit exactly where it hurt most. She was back in that moment, her mother's hand gripping hers, the headlights coming too fast, the drunk driver's truck crossing the center line, her mother's body covering hers, the impact, the glass, the screaming that might have been her own. No, breathe. He doesn't know what happened. He wasn't there. He's just saying words because words are the only weapons small men have. But the words had found their target. Cole slid into a booth across the aisle, positioning himself for maximum visibility. His girlfriend, Brianna, giggled and leaned against him. His friends pulled out their phones. Recording, always recording. Cruelty wasn't real anymore unless it was documented and shared. Sloane stared at her menu, the words blurred. Just ignore them. Eat your pancakes. Leave. Survive another day. You know what I heard? Cole's voice dropped to a stage whisper that somehow filled the entire room. I heard her daddy blames her. Says she's the reason his wife is dead. How did he know that the answer came immediately? Small towns had no secrets. Wyatt Harper's drunken rages were probably discussed over coffee at every table in this diner. The lawyer who'd lost his wife and found the bottom of a bourbon bottle. The man who looked at his daughter and saw only the person who'd survived when the woman he loved hadn't. That's messed up. One of Cole's friends didn't sound particularly troubled, just making conversation. Right, I mean, imagine living with that. Cole shook his head in mock sympathy. Every day waking up and knowing you killed your own mother. I'd drink too. Tears burned behind Sloane's eyes. She would not cry in front of Cole Morrison, would not give him that satisfaction. Rita appeared with pancakes, set the plate down gently, positioned herself between Sloane and Cole's booth like a shield that was already too late. Here you go, sweetheart. Extra butter, just like your mama liked. Thank you. Sloane's voice was barely audible. Rita lingered, her jaw tight, her eyes hard. You need anything else, you just holler. The waitress walked away and Sloane picked up her fork. Her appetite was gone, but she would eat anyway, would eat every bite, would not let Cole Morrison see her break. She'd survived worse than words. She'd survived the crash. Hey, Wheels! Sloane flinched. The nickname landed like a slap. Cole was standing now, walking toward her table, phone raised, recording. My followers want to see the famous girl of Cedar Creek. Please don't. Please just go away. Look at her. Cole's voice went high-pitched mocking. God, you even sound pathetic. Cole, Brianna tugged at his arm, her smile faltering. Maybe we should I'm just being friendly. He stopped beside Sloane's table, looming. Aren't I being friendly, Wheels? Sloane couldn't look at him. She stared at her pancake's hands, clenched in her lap, every muscle in her body screaming to run, except her legs wouldn't listen because her legs never listened anymore. You know what I don't get? Cole leaned closer, his breath hot on her cheek, smelling of energy drinks and entitlement. Why do you even bother coming out? Like, what's the point? You can't walk. You can't dance. You can't do anything normal people do. Why don't you just stay home where nobody has to look at you? The diner had gone silent. Conversations died mid-sentence. Forks stopped halfway to mouths. Dozens of eyes watching, waiting, and not one voice spoke up. Not one person stood. I asked you a question. Cole's tone sharpened. Why do you come out? Something inside Sloane cracked. 3 years of swallowing words. 3 years of making herself small. 3 years of apologizing for surviving. Because I have every right to be here. Her voice shook, but it was there. Just like you. Cole's eyebrows shot up, genuine surprise crossing his face like he'd forgotten she could speak. Oh, she talks. Did everybody hear that? The cripple has a voice. Laughter from his friends. Nervous shifting from other customers. Sloane's face burned. She reached for her coffee, needing something to do with her hands, needing to look anywhere but at Cole's smirking face. Cole bumped the table with his hip. The mug tipped. Hot coffee splashed across the tablecloth, pooling at the edge, dripping onto Sloane's lap. Pain, brief but sharp. Oops! His smile was razor wire. Clumsy me. Sloane grabbed napkins, hands shaking so badly she could barely hold them, dabbing at the mess, at her jeans, at the dignity that was leaking away with every second. Oh, let me help. Cole's voice dripped false concern. You can't do it yourself, right? That's the whole point of being a... He reached for her purse. Don't. Too late. He lifted it off the table, turned it upside down. Everything spilled. Wallet, phone, keys, lip balm, tissues. The detritus of a life lived in small, careful pieces. And the envelope, the white envelope, with $847 inside. It hit the floor, bills scattered, sliding under tables, into the puddle of spilled coffee, beneath the boots of men who were suddenly very interested in their eggs. Well, well. Cole bent down, picked up the envelope, fanned the bills like playing cards. What do we have here, damn wheels? You've been holding out on us. Give it back. Sloane's voice cracked. Please. That's everything I have. Everything you have. Cole's eyes gleamed. Then you should probably take better care of it. He opened his fingers. The money fell, bills floating down like broken promises, landing on the dirty floor, in coffee stains, under tables where she couldn't reach, scattered across linoleum that thousands of feet had walked across without caring about the girl who couldn't. Sloane lunged forward. Instinct, muscle memory, forgetting for one terrible moment that her legs didn't work anymore. Her body pitched sideways. She caught herself on the table edge. Pain shot through her shoulder. The wheelchair tipped. She was falling and she couldn't stop it, and everyone was watching, and Cole's laughter filled the diner. Oh my God, did you see that? She tried to stand up. She actually forgot she's a cripple. His friends were filming. 3 phones pointed at Sloane as she struggled to pull herself back into position, as she fought against gravity and useless legs and a body that had betrayed her 3 years ago and wouldn't stop betraying her. Cole, stop. Brianna's voice had lost its warmth. This isn't funny anymore. It's hilarious. Cole crouched down, face level with Sloane's, close enough that she could see every pore, every calculation, every ounce of cruelty that had been bred into him by a father who'd taught him that power meant never having to care. You know what your problem is? Wheels, you think you matter. You think anyone in this room gives a damn about you. He gestured at the silent diner, at Pastor Merrick, suddenly fascinated by his Bible, at Deputy Coleman studying his coffee like it held the secrets of the universe, at the family with kids whose father was shushing them when they asked why the lady was crying. Look around, nobody's helping you, nobody cares because you're nothing, you're less than nothing, and you're just a broken thing taking up space. Sloane's tears finally fell. She hated herself for it, hated that he'd won, hated that she couldn't stop the sobs building in her chest like a storm that had been gathering for 3 years. That's it. Cole stood satisfied. Now you're getting it. He stepped on a $20 bill, grinding it into the floor with his heel. Finders keepers, right? Sloane couldn't breathe. The money, her freedom, 11 months of work scattered across a floor she couldn't reach. And she couldn't even get down there to pick it up because her legs were useless and her body was broken and everything was broken. And please, the word came out as a whisper. That's for a wheelchair, a real one. So you can what? Cole laughed. Roll around better. Honey, no wheelchair in the world is going to make you normal. Just accept it. You're going to be pathetic for the rest of your life. He turned back to his table, and that's when Sloane noticed. Every single person in that diner was looking away. The truckers at the counter suddenly fascinated by their eggs. The family with kids being told to hush. The young couple in the corner pretending deep conversation was more important than watching a girl being destroyed. And 3 booths away, Pastor Merrick, the man who preached about loving your neighbor every Sunday, who talked about standing up for the weak, about being your brother's keeper. He met Sloane's eyes for one brief second, then looked away. Something inside Sloane shattered. Not because of Cole. She'd known boys like Cole her whole life, small and cruel and desperate to feel big by making others feel smaller. No, what broke her was the silence, the complete devastating silence of an entire room full of adults who saw a young man torment a disabled girl and did absolutely nothing. She began to pick up the money. It was slow, agonizing, her wheelchair positioned wrong, and she had to drag herself along the dirty floor, reaching under tables, between chair legs, her shoulders screaming where she'd hit it, her tears dripping onto bills that smelled like spilled coffee and shame. Nobody helped. Not one person moved from their seat. Rita appeared with napkins, crouched beside Sloane, eyes red. "Honey, I'm so sorry. I can't." She glanced at Cole's table. "He'll get my boss to fire me. I have grandkids. I can't lose this job." "It's okay," Sloane heard herself say. But it wasn't okay. Nothing about this was okay. Her phone buzzed, still on the floor where it had fallen. Screen cracked now. That would cost money she didn't have. But she could see the notification. Unknown number. Probably spam. Probably a scam. Probably one of Cole's friends calling to mock her some more. She almost declined it, but something made her swipe to answer. "Hello. Hello, little sister." The voice was deep, rough like gravel scraped over stone. Unfamiliar. But something in it made Sloane's breath catch. "I'm sorry, who?" "Stay exactly where you are." The voice cut through her confusion like a blade. "Don't leave that diner. Family's coming." "I don't," Sloane's voice broke. "I don't have any family." A pause, long and heavy. "Yes, you do, and we're 10 minutes out." The line went dead. Sloane stared at her phone. Family. She had no family. Her mother was dead. Her father was a stranger who looked through her like she was a ghost made of guilt. She had no aunts, no uncles, no cousins who claimed her. So who? A sound reached her ears. Faint at first. So faint she thought she was imagining it. But it grew louder. A rumble. A roar. The kind of sound that made walls vibrate and windows rattle and coffee cups tremble on tables. Motorcycles. A lot of them. Cole heard it too. He looked up from his phone, frowning. "What the hell is that?" The roar grew louder, louder still. The glasses on the counter began to shake. The lights flickered. Through the window, Sloane saw them. One motorcycle first, then another, then another. They kept coming. 23 Harley-Davidsons pulled into the parking lot of Dusty Trails Diner. Chrome gleaming in morning sun, engines thundering like judgment, and on their backs leather and patches in the unmistakable colors of the Hells Angels. Every person in that diner froze. Cole's face went white. "Oh, shit," one of his friends whispered. The engines cut off, one by one. The silence that followed was somehow more terrifying than the noise had been. Sloane watched through the window as riders dismounted. They moved with practiced coordination, spreading out, taking positions. She'd seen enough movies to recognize what this was. This was a show of force. The diner door opened. The man who walked through changed everything. Late 50s, tall and broad with silver hair pulled back in a long braid. His beard was streaked with gray. His eyes were the kind of blue that had seen things most people couldn't imagine, things that left marks on the soul. His leather vest was covered in patches, Hell's Angels colors, military insignia, memorial patches for the dead. He looked like war made human, and he walked directly toward Sloane. Her heart stopped. "This is wrong. This is a mistake. They're going to..." The man stopped beside her wheelchair, looked down at the scattered money, the cracked phone, the tears still wet on her cheeks. Then he knelt. This massive, terrifying figure lowered himself to one knee, bringing his gaze level with hers. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, almost gentle. "You're Rachel's daughter." Sloane's breath caught. Nobody called her mother Rachel. Everyone in Cedar Creek had called her Ray. How did this stranger know her mother's full name? "How do you know?" "Because Rachel Harper was my little sister." The man's jaw tightened. Emotion flickered across that weathered face. Grief, regret, something deeper. "My name is Flint Blackwood, and I've been looking for you for 6 months. And the diner had gone completely silent. Even Cole seemed frozen in his booth. Sloane couldn't process what she was hearing. "That's not possible. My mother didn't have any siblings. She told me..." "She told you what your father wanted her to tell you." Flint's voice carried no anger, only sadness. "Rachel and I grew up together, rode together. She was my best friend before she was my sister." He paused. and she left all of this behind to marry your father and give you a normal life. Sloane's world tilted. Her mother, her quiet, gentle mother who baked cookies and drove a minivan and volunteered at the library. Her mother had been connected to the Hells Angels. I don't understand. Flint's eyes found hers, and suddenly she saw it. The same blue she saw in the mirror every morning. The same shade her mother's eyes had been. I know you don't, and I'll explain everything. His hand came up slowly, carefully, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he placed it gently on her shoulder. But right now, I need you to understand one thing. What? You are not alone, his voice hardened. You were never alone. I've been watching over you for 6 months. Ever since I found out Rachel was gone. He stopped, took a breath. And if I had known what was happening in this diner. He didn't finish. Didn't need to. The guy who did this to you. Flint still didn't turn around. Didn't need to. The one who dumped your money on the floor. He's sitting behind me, isn't he? Sloane nodded. And nobody in this diner helped you. No. Flint was silent for a long moment. Then he rose to his feet. Hawk. A woman stepped forward from the line of bikers. Mid-40s, lean and sharp-featured, with kind eyes that contradicted her intimidating presence. She wore the same colors as Flint. Same leather vest. Same patches that said she'd earned her place through blood and loyalty. Help my niece collect her things. Make sure she has everything. Hawk nodded, crouched beside Sloane, began carefully gathering the scattered bills with hands that moved with practiced efficiency. Flint turned to face the diner. Which one of you is Cole Morrison? The silence stretched. Cole's friends suddenly discovered urgent messages on their phones. Brianna slid away from her boyfriend, putting distance between them. Cole didn't move. I'm talking to you, boy. Flint's voice carried without rising. Stand up. Do you know who my father is? Cole's voice was meant to be bold, but it cracked. Bradford Morrison, mayor of Cedar Creek, owns half the commercial property in this county, including the building this diner operates in. Flint's tone remained conversational. Also owes $340,000 to some very unpleasant people in Oklahoma City. Had an affair with a paralegal in Tulsa 2 years ago. Pays her $600 a month to keep quiet. Cheated on his taxes in 2020, 2021, and 2022. Shall I continue? Cole's face had gone from white to gray. How do you... When my sister died, I made it my business to know everything about the town that let her die. Flint took a step forward, including the family of the boy who's been tormenting her daughter. Deputy Coleman, who'd been sitting at the counter pretending to be invisible, cleared his throat. Now hold on, I'm a law enforcement officer. You can't just... Deputy Coleman. Flint didn't even look at him. You've been sitting there for 20 minutes. You watched a grown man humiliate a disabled girl. You watched him destroy her property. You watched her crawl on the floor to pick up her own money. His voice dropped to ice. And you did nothing. The deputy's mouth opened, closed. That's what I thought. Flint returned his attention to Cole. Stand up. This time Cole obeyed, his legs visibly shaking. You called her a cripple. Flint's voice was quiet, almost conversational. You told her she shouldn't exist. You said nobody cares about her. He gestured at the line of bikers behind him. 23 men and women in leather and patches and barely controlled fury. There are 23 people in this room who disagree. Cole swallowed hard. Look, I was just joking around. You didn't mean to be caught. A voice from behind Sloane. She turned. Hawk was holding a phone, Cole's friend's phone, which she'd apparently confiscated without anyone noticing. This one was live streaming, Hawk said calmly. 3,000 people watched you torment that girl. The comments are not favorable. Cole's face went from gray to green. Give me that? It's already uploaded. Hawk's smile was cold. Automatically saved to 3 different platforms. Even if you delete the original, it's out there forever now. She glanced at the screen. Oh, look, someone's already tagged your university's admissions office. The diner door banged open. Bradford Morrison had arrived. He stood in the doorway in his expensive suit, face red with fury, already reaching for his phone. I'm calling the state police. I'm having every single one of you arrested for intimidation, for threats, for what? Flint's voice cut through the bluster like a blade. for being witnesses to your son's behavior, for standing in a public establishment, for offering comfort to a grieving girl, for intimidation, for threats. I'll think of something else by the time we get to the station. I haven't touched anyone. Flint spread his hands. I haven't threatened anyone. I've asked questions and stated facts. If those facts are intimidating, perhaps you should examine why. Bradford's jaw worked. You think you can come into my town and... Your town? Flint's voice dropped to something dangerous. Let me tell you about your town, Mayor. He took one step forward, then another. Your town let my sister die. She was driving home from visiting her own mother's grave. Did you know that there was a drunk driver on the road? A man named Carl Hendress, who had 3 prior DUIs that your office plea bargained down to nothing because his brother donates to your campaign. Bradford's face went pale. That drunk driver hit my sister's car head on. And Rachel, my Rachel, she had 1 second to make a choice. She could have braced herself, could have tried to survive. Flint's voice cracked. Instead, she threw herself across her daughter, shielded her with her own body, took the impact so Sloan would live. Sloan's vision blurred. She'd known the facts of the accident, but she'd never known this. Her mother had chosen, had made a conscious decision to dim so her daughter would survive. So when you stand there and tell me this is your town, Flint's eyes burned into Bradford. When your son tells my niece she should have died instead, when he says she's worthless, that nobody cares about her. He leaned in close. I need you to understand something, Mayor. You have made a very serious mistake. Bradford's hand was shaking on his phone. What do you want? Flint straightened. I want your son to apologize. Really apologize. On camera, for the same platforms that saw him torment her. And if he doesn't, Flint smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Then the documents I have about your finances, your affairs, and your very creative interpretation of campaign finance law find their way to the Oklahoma City press. Your choice, Morseum. The diner was utterly still. Bradford looked at his son, at the bikers, at Sloan still sitting with tears on her face and scattered money in her lap. Cole, he said finally, apologize. What, Dad, you can't be now. Cole's face contorted. For a moment, Sloan thought he might refuse. Then his shoulders slumped. He walked toward her, each step heavy. When he reached her table, he couldn't meet her eyes. He stopped, swallowed. I'm sorry. Look at her. Flint's voice was still. Look at her face when you say it. Cole raised his eyes. Sloan saw something she'd never expected. Fear, real fear, the kind that came from suddenly realizing that actions had consequences, that the armor of wealth and privilege had cracks. I'm sorry, Cole said again. I was wrong. I was cruel. And he trailed off. And you what? Flint prompted. Cole's voice dropped to barely a whisper. And I had no right to say those things to you. Silence. I don't. Sloan looked at this boy who had tormented her, who had called her worthless, who had made her feel like less than human, and she felt something unexpected. Not forgiveness. That would take time, if it ever came at all. But pity, because Cole Morrison was looking at her now, really looking. And she could see that he'd never once considered her a person. She'd been a target, a joke, a way to feel powerful. And now, forced to see her as human, he had no idea what to do. I don't forgive you, Sloan said quietly. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Cole flinched. But I want you to remember something. Her voice grew stronger. I wanted pancakes this morning. Just pancakes. The kind my mother used to order. That's all I wanted. And you decided I didn't deserve even that. She held his gaze. You don't have the right. Nobody has the right to take that from someone else, Schwan. The words hung in the air. Sloan hadn't planned them, hadn't rehearsed them. They came from somewhere deep, somewhere that had been silent for 3 years. You don't have the right to decide who matters and who doesn't. You don't have the right to tell me I should have died. You don't have the right to my dignity. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. I didn't choose to be in this wheelchair. I didn't choose to lose my mother, but I am choosing to be here. I am choosing to exist in spaces I have every right to exist in. And neither you nor your father nor anyone else gets to take that away from me. Cole backed away. He looked for the first time like exactly what he was, a scared boy who'd never learned that other people were real. "We're done here," Flint said. "Take your son home, Mayor, and remember what I told you." Bradford grabbed Cole's arm, pulled him toward the door. Brianna followed, face-pale, phone clutched to her chest. They were almost gone when Sloan called out, "Cole!" He turned. "My mother's name was Rachel." Sloan's voice didn't waver. "Not the woman who died. Rachel Harper. And she was the bravest person I've ever known. Remember that, too." The door swung shut. They were gone. And Sloan, broken, crying, exhausted, felt something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Not victory, not triumph, but presence. She existed. She mattered. She had spoken, and she had been heard. Flint knelt beside her again. "You did good, little sister." "I don't even know you," Sloan whispered. "No, but I know you." His eyes, her mother's eyes, held hers. "I've been watching you fight for 3 years. Fight to survive, fight to exist. Fight to matter in a world that keeps telling you not to." He took her hand. "Rachel knew you had thunder in your heart. That's what she used to say. That girl's got thunder in her heart." Sloane's tears spilled over. "She never told me about you. She wanted to protect you from this life, from the things I've done." Flint's voice roughened. "But I think maybe she was wrong. Because you're going to need people who will fight for you, Sloan, and really fight, not just look away when it gets uncomfortable." He glanced at the silent diner, at the faces that had watched her suffer and done nothing. And those people aren't here. Sloan looked around, at the truckers who'd watched her crawl, at Pastor Merrick, who still couldn't meet her eyes, at Deputy Coleman studying his coffee like it held absolution. Not one of them had helped, but 23 strangers in leather jackets had crossed the county to make sure she was okay. "What happens now?" she asked. Flint stood. "Now we make sure you're safe. Now we make sure you have everything you need. And now we have a conversation, you and me, about your mother and who she really was." He held out his hand. "But first, let's get you some pancakes, the good kind, Rachel's kind." Sloan took his hand, and for the first time since her mother's funeral, she didn't feel alone. The pancakes arrived steaming hot. Perfect golden circles, stacked 3 high with butter melting down the sides, exactly the way Sloan remembered. Exactly the way her mother had ordered them every Sunday for 15 years. Rita set the plate down with trembling hands. Her eyes darted between Sloan and the massive man sitting across from her. 23 bikers had spread throughout the diner, some at the counter, others in booths, all of them watching the door like they expected trouble to walk through it at any moment. "On the house," Rita whispered. "Both plates." Flint nodded once. "Appreciate it." The waitress hurried away and Sloan found herself alone with a stranger who claimed to be family. She stared at her pancakes, unable to eat, unable to think past the earthquake that had just rearranged her entire understanding of who her mother had been. "You have her eyes." Flint was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. "Everyone says that." "Because it's true." He picked up his coffee, cradling it in hands that were scarred and weathered. "Rachel had those same eyes, could see right through you with one look." "Don't call her that." The words came out sharper than Sloan intended. Flint's eyebrow rose. "Rachel. That's what my father calls her." "Called her." Sloan's throat tightened. "When he's drunk. When he wants to remind me that she's gone and I'm still here." Flint's jaw hardened. "Your father and I need to have a conversation." "Good luck with that. He barely talks to me, and we live in the same house." "He will talk to me." Something in Flint's tone made Sloan believe it. She picked up her fork, pushed a piece of pancake around her plate. The questions were piling up faster than she could process them, and she didn't know where to start. "How come I never knew about you?" Flint set down his coffee. "That's a long story." "I've got time." "You sure you want to hear it? Some of it isn't pretty." Sloan met his eyes. "My mother died protecting me. My father blames me for surviving. I just got humiliated in front of an entire diner full of people who did nothing." Her voice steadied. "I think I can handle not pretty." Flint studied her for a long moment. Then something in his face softened and he nodded. "All right, you want the truth. Here it is." He leaned back in his seat. "Your grandmother, my mother, she died when Rachel was 15. Overdose. Our old man was already gone by then. Took off when Rachel was a baby, so it was just me and her. Sloane's fork stopped moving. I was 23, already riding with the angels. It wasn't a good life for a teenage girl, but it was the only life I had to offer. Flint's voice roughened. Rachel didn't care. She wanted to be part of it, wanted to ride, wanted to belong to something. He paused, and for a few years she did. My mother rode motorcycles, rode better than half the guys in the club. A ghost of a smile crossed Flint's face. She was fearless, wild, the kind of person who made you feel like anything was possible. Sloane tried to reconcile this image with the mother she remembered, the woman who drove a minivan, who baked cookies for school fundraisers, who cried at commercials. What happened? She met your father. The words landed like stones in still water. Wyatt was different back then. Young, ambitious, just finished law school, wanted to change the world. Flint's expression hardened. He walked into a bar where we were drinking and saw Rachel across the room. That was it. Done. He couldn't see anything else. And she felt the same way. She thought she did, Flint corrected himself. Wyatt represented everything she thought she wanted. Stability, respectability, a life where nobody looked at her like she was trash. She wasn't trash. I know that, you know that. But Rachel, he shook his head. She carried our mother's shame like it was her own. She thought if she could just be normal enough, good enough, clean enough, maybe she could outrun where she came from. Sloane's heart ached. She understood that feeling. The desperate need to be something other than what the world saw when it looked at you. So she left. She left. Flint's voice was flat. Married Wyatt, moved to this town, cut off everyone from her old life, including me. Just like that. Just like that. He met her eyes. I didn't even know she was pregnant until after you were born. She sent me one letter with a photo. You were maybe 3 months old. She said she was happy, said she had everything she ever wanted, said please don't contact her again because it would ruin everything she'd built. Sloane's throat closed. And you listened. I listened. Flint's hands tightened around his mug. Because I loved her. Because I wanted her to have the life she dreamed of, even if it meant losing her. His voice cracked. I thought I was doing the right thing. The diner seemed to fade around them. Sloane could only see this man, this stranger who was her blood, carrying the weight of 20 years of silence. When did you find out she died? Flint was quiet for a long moment. 6 months ago. Sloane's breath caught. 6 months. But she's been gone for 3 years. Nobody told me. The words came out rough, raw. Rachel had cut all ties. Her death notice was in the Cedar Creek Gazette. Not exactly wide circulation. I only found out because an old friend was passing through Oklahoma and happened to pick up a copy. He pulled something from his vest pocket, a folded piece of newspaper, worn soft from handling. I've read this 1,000 times. Sloane took it with shaking hands. It was her mother's obituary. Rachel Marie Harper, beloved wife and mother, taken too soon. When I read this, I thought I was going to die. Flint's voice was barely audible. My baby sister, gone. And I didn't even get to say goodbye. Sloane's tears spilled over. I came here the next week, he continued. Stood outside your house for 3 hours trying to work up the courage to knock. Watched you wheel yourself to the mailbox. Watched your father stumble out to his truck without even looking at you. Why didn't you come to me then? Because I didn't know if you'd want me. Flint's eyes glistened. Rachel left me behind for a reason. She wanted you to have a different life, a better life. Who was I to come crashing in and destroy that, a better life? Sloane's voice rose. You call this better? My father can't look at me. I haven't had a real conversation with another person in months. I spend every day just trying to survive until the next one. She was crying openly now. I needed someone, anyone, and you were out there watching. I know. Flint reached across the table. His hand covered hers, warm and steady. I was wrong. I thought I was protecting Rachel's choice, but I was really just scared. Scared you'd reject me. Scared you'd look at me the way your father looks at me, like I'm something dirty. I would never. I know that now. His grip tightened. When Rita called me this morning, told me what was happening. Something broke inside me. I thought, that's my niece. That's Rachel's daughter. And I'm hiding in the shadows while she suffers alone. He met her eyes. Never again, Sloan, I swear to you. Never again. The words settled into Sloane's chest like a promise. She turned her hand over, gripped his fingers. Tell me more about her. The parts I didn't know. Flint's face transformed. The hardness melted away, replaced by something tender. She used to sing. Did you know that she sang to me every night until I was 12? Yeah, but I mean really sing. She had this voice. He shook his head. She'd get up on the bar at whatever dive we were drinking at and sing old country songs. Patsy Cline, Loretta Lynn, guys who'd been in bar fights the night before would sit there with tears running down their faces. Sloane smiled through her tears. She sang Crazy at my 8th birthday party. Dad told her she was embarrassing herself. Flint's expression darkened. Sounds like Wyatt. He wasn't always like that. Sloane didn't know why she was defending him. Before the accident, he was different. Not warm exactly, but present. He tried. And after, Sloane's voice dropped. After, it was like I died too. He looks at me and sees her, and he can't stand it. So he drinks. So he drinks. Flint was quiet for a moment. What happened that night, the accident? I only know what I read into the paper. Sloane's whole body went cold. I can't talk about it. Not yet. Please. Flint studied her face. Whatever he saw there made him nod. Okay, when you're ready, if you're ever ready. Thank you. A commotion outside drew their attention. Through the window, Sloane saw a familiar truck pulling into the parking lot. Her father's truck, weaving slightly, even at 9 in the morning. He's here, she whispered. Flint stood slowly. Good, it's time. Wyatt Harper walked into the diner and the temperature dropped. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Clothes wrinkled, hair uncombed. Even from across the room, Sloane could smell the whiskey. But his eyes were sharp, furious. Get away from my daughter. Wyatt, Flint's voice was calm. Don't you say my name. Wyatt's voice shook with rage. Don't you dare, I know who you are. I know what you are. Dad, Sloane's voice was small. It's okay, Be quiet, Sloane, this doesn't concern you. Flint rose slowly from the booth. She's my niece. Everything about her concerns me. She's my daughter, mine, not yours. You don't get to swoop in here and what care about her? Flint's voice dropped to something dangerous. Because you've done such a fantastic job of that. Wyatt's face went red. You don't know anything about my family. I know Rachel died 3 years ago and you've been drowning in a bottle ever since. I know your daughter has been raising herself while you stumble through what's left of your life. I know she came to this diner for pancakes, the same pancakes her mother used to order, and got humiliated by some rich kid while you were probably passed out somewhere. Each word landed like a hammer blow. Wyatt flinched. That's exactly what happened. Flint took a step forward. I've been watching Wyatt for 6 months. I've seen everything. You had no right. I had every right. She's blood, my blood, Rachel's blood. Wyatt's composure cracked. Don't you talk about her. Don't you say her name. Rachel. Flint said it deliberately. Rachel Marie, my sister. The woman who loved you enough to leave everything behind. The woman who died saving your daughter while you weren't even there. Stop. The woman you've been punishing Sloane for because you can't face your own guilt. I said stop. Wyatt lunged. He was drunk and uncoordinated, but the fury behind the movement was real. Flint sidestepped easily, caught Wyatt's arm and spun him into the nearest booth. The impact knocked the breath out of him. I'm not going to fight you. Flint's voice was controlled. Not in front of Sloane, not anywhere. But you need to hear something and you're going to listen. Wyatt struggled, but Flint's grip was iron. Rachel loved you. God knows why, but she did. She gave up everything for you, her family, her friends, her whole identity. She spent 25 years trying to be the woman you wanted her to be. She was perfect. Wyatt's voice broke. She was everything. No, she was human. She was complicated and wild and scared and brave. And you never let her be any of those things. Flint's eyes burned. You wanted a trophy wife, a respectable mother for your children. And Rachel loved you enough to play that role until it killed her. Stop. The night she died, she was coming back from visiting our mother's grave. Did you know that she drove 2 hours to put flowers on a grave you never let her visit while you were alive? Because you were ashamed of where she came from. Wyatt stopped struggling. She visited alone, always alone, never told anyone. And on the way back, a drunk driver crossed the center line. She had 1 second to make a choice. 1 second. Flint's voice cracked. And she chose you, Sloan. She threw herself over your daughter and took the impact that was meant for both of them. I know. Wyatt's whisper was barely audible. I know how she died. Then why? Flint's grip tightened. Why do you look at Sloan like she's the enemy? Why do you blame her for surviving? Because it should have been me. The words tore out of Wyatt like a confession. I should have been in that car. I was supposed to drive her to the cemetery, but I had a meeting, a goddamn meeting I don't even remember now. So she went alone. And she died alone. And our daughter, he broke down completely. Our daughter had to watch her mother die on top of her, had to feel her body go limp, had to wait for rescue while her mother's blood. Dad, stop. Sloane's voice shattered the moment. Please stop. Both men turned to look at her. She was shaking. Tears poured down her face. The memories she'd spent 3 years suppressing were clawing their way to the surface. I was awake. Her voice was barely a whisper. When she covered me, when the other car hit, I was awake for all of it. Flint released Wyatt. Both men stood frozen. She looked at me. Sloane's eyes were distant, seeing something neither of them could see. Right before the impact, she looked at me and smiled. And she said, I love you, baby girl. Close your eyes. The diner was utterly silent. I didn't close them. I wanted to see her. I wanted to remember her face. Sloane's voice broke. And then the glass was everywhere, and she was on top of me, and I couldn't breathe, and I kept saying, Mom, wake up. Mom, please wake up. She buried her face in her hands. I said it for 45 minutes until the firefighters came, until they pulled her off me, and I saw she couldn't finish. Flint moved first, crossed the space between them, and pulled Sloane into his arms. Wheelchair and all, she sobbed against his chest, 3 years of grief pouring out. I'm sorry, she choked out. I'm sorry I couldn't save her. I'm sorry I survived. I'm sorry. No. Flint's voice was fierce. You don't apologize for being alive, ever. Do you hear me? Rachel made a choice. The choice she wanted to make. The choice any mother would make. He pulled back, gripped her shoulders. You are not responsible for her death. You are the reason it meant something. Sloane stared at him through tears. She saved you because you were worth saving, because she knew you had something to offer this world, because she believed in you. His voice shook. Don't you dare apologize for that. Don't you dare let anyone make you feel guilty for the gift your mother gave you. Across the room, Wyatt stood motionless. The anger had drained out of him. In its place was something Sloane had never seen on her father's face. Shame. Real devastating shame. I didn't know, he whispered. About the 45 minutes. About what you saw. You never told me. You never asked. Sloane's voice was hollow. You never asked me anything. You just disappeared into the bottle, into yourself. You left me alone with all of it. Wyatt's legs gave out. He slumped against the nearest booth, face gray. I thought if I didn't talk about it, I could pretend it wasn't real. I thought if I didn't look at you, I wouldn't see her, wouldn't remember. And instead you made me feel like I killed her. The words hung between them. You said it. Her voice hardened. 100 times when you were drunk. She died for you. She should have let you, D. At least then I'd still have her. Flint's hand tightened on Sloane's shoulder. You said that. To your own daughter. Wyatt couldn't meet his eyes. I was drunk. I didn't mean, but you said it over and over, and she had to live with those words. I know. Wyatt's voice broke. I know what I've done. Before anyone could respond, Hawk appeared in the doorway, her phone in hand, expression grim. Flint, we've got a situation. Everyone turned. What kind? The viral kind. Hawk held up her phone. Cole Morrison's Little Stream. It's everywhere. Flint took the phone. Sloane wheeled closer to see. The screen showed a social media platform. a video playing on loop. She recognized the diner, recognized herself on the floor, scrambling for scattered money while Cole and his friends laughed. The view count read 2.3 million. "Oh my God," Sloan whispered. "That's not all." Hawk swiped to show the comments. Sloan read through the flood of reactions. Most were outraged, calling Cole a monster, demanding accountability. But some were different. "I know that girl. She's the one whose mom died in that crash. This is Cedar Creek, Oklahoma. The mayor's kid always gets away with everything. Someone needs to teach that little punk a lesson." Hell's Angels showed up at the diner afterward. "There's another video." Hawk scrolled down. Another video appeared, lower quality, shot from inside the diner. It showed the bikers arriving, showed Flint kneeling beside Sloan, showed Bradford Morrison being confronted. This one had 1.8 million views and climbing. "We're all over the news," Hawk said. "Local, regional, starting to go national. People are calling it the diner incident." Sloan's hands were shaking. "I didn't want this. I know." Flint's voice was gentle but firm. "But it's happening, and now we need to decide how to handle it." "Handle it how?" "The world is watching, Sloan. They've seen you at your lowest moment. They've seen a rich kid humiliate you while a whole town did nothing." Flint met her eyes. "The question is, what do you want them to see next?" Sloan didn't have an answer. Her phone buzzed. Then again, then continuously, an endless stream of notifications. "Word got out," Hawk explained. "Someone posted your name. People are finding your accounts." Sloan looked at her phone with something approaching horror. Hundreds of messages, thousands of followers she'd never had before. Her face was everywhere. The crying girl in the wheelchair, the victim, everyone wanted to save. "I can't do this," her voice cracked. "I can't be a symbol. I'm just a person." "You're not just anything." A new voice. Rosie had appeared beside her, 65 years old, weathered face, eyes that had seen everything. "You're a young woman who stood up to cruelty when everyone else stayed silent. That means something." "I didn't stand up. I sat there and cried." "You spoke." Rosie's voice was firm. "I watched the video when that boy came back to apologize. You told him the truth. You said he didn't have the right. It wasn't enough. It was everything." Rosie crouched beside Sloan's wheelchair. "Do you know how many people go through their whole lives never saying what you said, never standing in front of their tormentors and refusing to be diminished?" Sloan's tears spilled over. "I was terrified." "Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's speaking truth when your voice shakes." Rosie squeezed her hand. "You've got thunder in your heart, girl, just like your mama. It's time you stopped apologizing for the noise." Flint's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and frowned. "It's Sheriff Rawlings." He stepped away to answer. Sloan watched his face change as he listened, from cautious to surprised to something that might have been satisfaction. "Understood. We'll be ready." He hung up, turned to face the room. "Bradford Morrison just got arrested." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. "Arrested." Sloan couldn't process it. "For what?" "The Oklahoma City people I mentioned. The ones he owes money to." Flint's eyes gleamed. "Turns out they're connected to some very serious federal investigations. When those videos went viral, they got spooked, started cooperating with the FBI to protect themselves." He almost smiled. "Morrison is being charged with money laundering fraud and about a dozen campaign finance violations. His assets are frozen. His house is being searched." "What about Cole?" Wyatt's voice was hoarse. "The university revoked his admission 2 hours ago. His girlfriend's father, big oil money, very image conscious, just released a statement condemning his behavior and ending their relationship." Sloan should have felt triumphant, should have felt vindicated. Instead, she felt hollow. "This doesn't fix anything," she said quietly. Flint's expression softened. "No, it doesn't. But it's a start. What happens now?" "Now you have a choice." Flint sat down across from her. "The sheriff called because reporters are gathering in Cedar Creek. They want to talk to you, tell your story, make you the face of this whole thing." "I don't want to be a face." "I know, and you don't have to be. We can leave right now, ride to another state, disappear until this blows over." Flint leaned forward. But I need you to think about something first. What? The people in that diner, the ones who watched and did nothing? They're not evil, they're scared. They've been living under Bradford Morrison's thumb for years, afraid to speak up, afraid to lose what little they have. He paused. You going back, telling your story. It's not about revenge. It's about showing them that it's possible to stand up, that the fear doesn't have to win. Sloane looked at her hands, the same hands that had gripped her mother's as she died, the same hands that had clawed across a dirty floor to collect scattered money while strangers laughed. What would she do? Sloane's voice was barely a whisper. My mother. What would Rachel do? Flint's eyes glistened. She would ride back into that town like a queen returning to her kingdom. She would stand in front of everyone who ever dismissed her and show them exactly who they'd been wrong about. He took her hand. But you're not Rachel. You get to choose your own path. Whatever you decide will support you. Sloane closed her eyes. She saw her mother's face in that final moment. The smile, the words. I love you, baby girl. Close your eyes. But Sloane hadn't closed her eyes. She had watched. She had remembered. And maybe that was the point. I'll go back. Flint's grip tightened. You're sure? No. Sloane opened her eyes. But I've spent 3 years hiding from everything. Hiding from the accident. Hiding from my father. Hiding from myself. She sat up straighter. I'm tired of hiding. Then we ride. Flint stood. Hawk razor wire, get ready. We're going back to Cedar Creek, and this time we're finishing what we started. The bikers moved with practiced efficiency. Engines revved. Formation assembled. 23 motorcycles ready to ride. Wyatt appeared beside Sloane. Would it be okay if I came with you? Sloane looked at her father, at the man who had failed her in every way that mattered, at the man who was trying finally to do better. Okay. Wyatt's face lit up with a hope so raw it almost hurt to witness. Thank you. Thank you, Sloane. Don't thank me yet. She wheeled herself toward the door. This doesn't mean I've forgiven you. It means I'm giving you a chance to earn forgiveness. That's more than I deserve. Yes, it is. They rolled out of Dusty Trails Diner as the morning sun climbed higher. 23 motorcycles, 1 wheelchair, 1 broken father. And a girl who was learning that thunder didn't have to be quiet just because the world was uncomfortable with noise. The ride would take less than an hour. But for Sloane, it felt like crossing into a different life. One where she wasn't invisible anymore. One where her voice mattered. One where the thunder in her heart could finally be heard. Her mother had spent 18 years hiding who she really was, trying to be small enough to fit into a life that was too narrow for her spirit. Sloane wouldn't make that mistake. Whatever came next, she would face it as herself. Loud, visible, unapologetic. The way Rachel would have wanted, the way Rachel should have been allowed to be. And as they rode towards Cedar Creek with engines roaring and chrome gleaming and the Oklahoma sun painting everything gold, Sloane understood something her mother had spent a lifetime learning. You couldn't outrun yourself. You could only decide whether to hide or to roar. Sloane was done hiding. The thunder was coming, and Cedar Creek was about to hear it. The Harper house sat at the end of Maple Street, small, worn, the kind of place that had seen better days and given up hoping they'd return. The ramp leading to the front door had been installed 3 years ago. Wyatt had never once acknowledged it existed. Now, as 23 motorcycles pulled up outside as neighbors emerged from their houses to stare, as the whole street held its breath, that ramp felt like the most important structure Sloane had ever seen. It was proof she'd been here, that she'd survived, that she'd kept going even when the world told her not to. Flint helped her from the sidecar to her wheelchair. The transfer was awkward, always was, but this time she didn't care who was watching. You want us to come in? Hawk asked. Not yet. Sloane looked at her father. Wyatt stood on the porch, sober, present, terrified. I need to talk to my dad first. The bikers nodded, spread out along the street. A wall of leather and chrome and loyalty that said, we're here, we're watching. Nobody touches her again. Sloane wheeled herself up the ramp. Wyatt held the door open. Their eyes met. 3 years of silence hung between them. 3 years of blame and grief and words that couldn't be unsaid. But maybe they could be answered. Inside, the house felt different, lighter somehow, like something that had been pressing down on it for years had finally lifted. I went to a meeting, Wyatt's voice was rough. While you were at the diner, AA, first one in my life. Sloane wheeled herself to the kitchen table, sat, waited. I had to say it out loud, what I've been running from. Wyatt followed her, stood awkwardly in the doorway like he didn't know if he had permission to enter his own kitchen. I said, my name is Wyatt Harper, and I'm an alcoholic. And I've spent 3 years destroying my relationship with my daughter because I couldn't face my own grief. His voice cracked. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. But when I said it, when I finally admitted it, something shifted. One meeting doesn't fix things, Dad. I know. You're going to want to drink again. You're going to have bad days. Days when you look at me and still see her and it's going to hurt so much, you'll want to crawl back into that bottle. I know. The word was barely a whisper. And when that happens, you need to choose, every single time. Choose to stay present. Choose to deal with the pain instead of drowning it. Sloane's voice hardened. Because I can't do this again. I can't watch you disappear while I'm standing right here needing you. Wyatt moved to the table, sat across from her. For the first time in 3 years, he really looked at her, really saw her. I found something. His hands were shaking as he reached into his jacket. While you were gone, I was cleaning out the attic, trying to, I don't know, do something useful. And I found a box. Sloane's heart stuttered. What kind of box? Rachel's. Wyatt pulled out a worn cardboard container, set it on the table between them like an offering. Things she kept hidden, letters, photos, a journal. A journal. She wrote about you, every entry, every page, how much she loved you, how proud she was of you, how she wished she could tell you the truth about who she was, but she was afraid. His voice broke. Afraid you'd be ashamed of her. Sloane's tears came fast. She thought I'd be ashamed. She wasn't ashamed of her past. She was afraid I would be. Afraid you would be. Wyatt's hands trembled on the box. She spent 18 years hiding the best parts of herself because she thought you deserved a normal mother. I deserved her, however she was. I know that now. Wyatt pushed the box towards Sloane. This is yours, all of it, her journals, her photos, the letter she wrote you 2 days before. He couldn't finish. Sloane opened the box with shaking hands. On top was an envelope, white, plain, her name written in her mother's careful script. She never sent it, Wyatt said. I don't know if she was ever going to, but it's yours now. Before Sloane could open it, a knock sounded at the door. Flint appeared in the doorway. We've got company. People are showing up. They want to talk to you. What people? People with stories. People who've been silent for too long. Sloane looked at her father, at the box of her mother's secrets, at the letter she desperately wanted to read but couldn't. Not yet. Not until this was finished. Let them in. Over the next 2 hours, the Harper house filled with voices. First came a woman in her 30s, bank teller, hands twisting in her lap as she spoke. Bradford Morrison threatened to foreclose on my family's farm if I reported irregularities in his accounts. I saw the money laundering. I saw everything. But I stayed quiet because I couldn't lose the farm. My grandfather built that place with his own hands. Then a middle-aged man, county worker, gray suit, tired eyes. I was passed over for promotions for 10 years. Every time I questioned the mayor's conduct, every time I tried to do the right thing, they'd promote someone less qualified, someone who kept their mouth shut. An elderly couple, married 60 years, holding hands like they were the only solid things in each other's world. Our property was seized through eminent domain for a Morrison development project. The legal proceedings were manipulated. We lost everything our son had inherited. Story after story, voice after voice. 23 people in total. 23 witnesses to a pattern of abuse that had gone unchecked for decades. And then a teenage boy appeared in the doorway. 17. Skinny, eyes that had seen too much darkness for someone his age. My name is Sawyer. His voice shook. Cole Morrison made my life hell for 4 years. He and his friends beat me up behind the gym, stole my things, spread rumors that destroyed my reputation. And when I tried to report it, the principal told me, boys will be boys. Sawyer's hands clenched. I tried to kill myself last year. swallowed a bottle of pills, and hoped I wouldn't wake up. The room went silent. I survived, obviously, but I've never told anyone why I did it. Because I was ashamed. Because I thought it was my fault for not being strong enough. He looked at Sloan, really looked at her. When I saw you on that video, when I saw you stand up and tell Cole he didn't have the right, something inside me changed. I realized I'd been blaming myself for things that were never my fault. Tears streamed down his face. So thank you. Thank you for giving me permission to tell my story. Sloan couldn't speak. She wheeled herself over to Sawyer, took his hand. You're going to be okay, she whispered. I promise, you're going to be okay. As the sun began to set, as the testimonies piled up, as the evidence mounted, Wire appeared with a laptop. I've got something. The tech specialist's fingers flew across the keyboard. Cole came through, documents from his father's safe. Everything. He turned the screen toward Flint. The old biker's face hardened as he read. This is it. Bribery records, fraud evidence, witness tampering, and... He stopped, scrolled down. Carl Hendress. Sloane's heart stopped. What about him? Bradford Morrison made calls to dismiss Hendress's DUI charges. 3 separate occasions. Hendress should have been in jail. Flint's voice was barely controlled. If Morrison hadn't intervened, that drunk driver wouldn't have been on the road. Rachel would still be alive. The words landed like stones. Sloane felt the breath leave her body. Morrison killed my mother. Not directly, but yes. Flint crouched beside her wheelchair. I'm sorry, I know this doesn't make anything easier. No. Sloane's voice hardened. It makes it clearer. We're not just fighting for justice anymore. We're fighting for everyone he's ever hurt, everyone he's ever silenced, everyone who's lost someone because he decided rules didn't apply to him. She looked around the room at all these people who had suffered under Morrison's power. What do we do now? Now we go public. Flint's eyes gleamed. All of it. The documents, the testimonies, everything. Morrison wanted a press conference. We'll give him one he'll never forget. The morning of the press conference arrived cold and clear. Sloane hadn't slept. None of them had. The night had been consumed with preparation, organizing documents, coordinating testimonies, making sure every piece of evidence was in order. Now as she sat in her wheelchair beside the Cedar Creek courthouse, Sloane felt the weight of everything that had led to this moment. The crowd gathering around the courthouse was massive. News vans from Oklahoma City, Tulsa, even Dallas. Reporters jockeying for position. Camera crews setting up equipment. And mixed among the media, the people of Cedar Creek. Watching, waiting, uncertain whose side they would choose. Bradford Morrison had scheduled his press conference for 10 a.m. He would stand on those courthouse steps and tell the world he was the victim, that Sloane and the Hells Angels had conspired against him, that everything they'd said was lies. But Sloane would speak first. At 9:45, she wheeled herself to the front of the crowd. Microphones swung toward her like flowers following the sun. My name is Sloane Harper. Her voice carried across the square, amplified by sudden silence. 3 days ago, I went to a diner for breakfast. I wanted pancakes, the kind my mother used to order before she was killed by a drunk driver 3 years ago. She paused, let the words settle. Instead of pancakes, I got humiliated. A young man named Cole Morrison dumped my purse on the floor, stepped on my money, and laughed while I crawled to pick it up. He called me a cripple. He told me I shouldn't bother leaving my house, and not a single person in that diner stood up to help me. The crowd stirred. Some faces showed recognition. They'd seen the videos. Others looked uncomfortable, perhaps recognizing themselves in the bystanders who had done nothing. I'm not here to talk about what happened to me. I'm here because I'm not alone, Sloane gestured. Behind her, 23 people stepped forward. These are the people Bradford Morrison has silenced. These are the victims of a man who believed his money and power made him untouchable. They've been afraid to speak for years, afraid of losing their jobs, their homes, their families. Her voice hardened, but they're not afraid anymore. One by one, they told their stories. The bank teller described Morrison's threats. The county worker explained his stalled career. The elderly couple detailed their seized property, and then Sawyer stepped forward. His voice shook as he spoke. Cole Morrison made my life hell for 4 years. When I tried to report it, I was told boys will be boys. He looked directly at the cameras. I tried to kill myself last year. Swallowed a bottle of pills. I survived. But I've never told anyone why because I was ashamed. His voice cracked. When I saw Sloan on that video, when I saw her stand up and tell Cole he didn't have the right, I realized I'd been blaming myself for things that were never my fault. The crowd was utterly silent. Sawyer turned to Sloan. Thank you. Thank you for showing me that silence isn't the only option. Sloan felt her own tears threatening, but she held them back. There would be time for tears later. Right now, she had work to finish. Bradford Morrison believes he can spin his way out of this. He believes that if he stands up there and lies confidently enough, people will believe him over us. She pulled out a folder, the documents Cole had retrieved from his father's safe. He's wrong. She held up the first document. This is a record of payments Bradford Morrison made to Judge Harrison to ensure favorable rulings in land disputes. She held up another. This is evidence that he bribed county officials to look the other way on building code violations that put workers' lives at risk. Another document. This is proof that he made calls to get DUI charges dismissed for Carl Hendress, the man who would later kill my mother. The crowd erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. Sloan raised her hand and somehow the noise subsided. Bradford Morrison didn't pull the trigger that killed my mother, but he made sure the gun was loaded. He put a drunk driver back on the road because it was politically convenient. And because of that decision, my mother threw herself over me and died so I could live. Her voice shook but held steady. I've spent 3 years blaming myself for surviving, 3 years apologizing for existing, 3 years letting people like Cole Morrison make me feel worthless because I sit instead of stand. She looked directly into the nearest camera. That ends today. A commotion at the edge of the crowd. Bradford Morrison was pushing his way toward the courthouse steps, face purple with rage. Lawyers flanking him, trying to hold him back. But he shook them off. This is slander, his voice boomed across the square. This is a conspiracy orchestrated by criminals and malcontents. Then explain the documents. Sloan's voice cut through his bluster. Fabricated all of it. Your own son provided them. The words stopped Morrison cold. What? Cole came to us. He told us where to find the evidence. He helped us gather it. Morrison's face went white. You're lying. Am I? Sloan gestured. Cole stepped out from behind the crowd. Father and son stared at each other across 10 feet of Oklahoma soil. Cole, Morrison's voice was dangerous. What have you done? The right thing. Cole's voice trembled, but didn't break. For the first time in my life, I did the right thing. You ungrateful little... You taught me that money makes you untouchable. That power means you can do whatever you want to whoever you want. Cole's tears fell freely. But you were wrong. You can't escape consequences forever. And I won't help you try anymore. Morrison lunged toward his son. Flint moved faster, stepped between them, his massive frame blocking the mayor's path. Don't! The single word carried more threat than any shouted curse. Morrison stopped, chest heaving, fists clenched. For a moment, it looked like he might try to fight through. Instead, something in him collapsed. You've destroyed everything. His voice was hollow. Everything I built. Everything I worked for. No, Sloan wheeled herself forward. You destroyed it yourself. Every bribe, every threat, every person you crushed to get what you wanted. Those were your choices. We're just making sure you finally face them. Sheriff Rawlings appeared at the edge of the crowd, accompanied by 2 FBI agents, their expressions grim. Bradford Morrison, the sheriff's voice carried across the square. You're under arrest. Morrison's lawyers surged forward, protests and objections tumbling over each other, but the FBI agents moved through them like water through a sieve. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Sloan watched as handcuffs clicked around Bradford Morrison's wrists, the man who had terrorized this town for decades, who had enabled the drunk driver who killed her mother, who had raised a son to believe cruelty was power. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. This isn't over. Morrison's eyes found Sloan as they led him away. You think you've won, but you haven't. I have friends, resources. This is just the beginning. Maybe, Sloan held his gaze, but it's the beginning of the end for you. The reporters descended. Questions flew from every direction, but Sloan had said everything she needed to say. She turned her wheelchair, found Flint waiting. You did good, little sister. I feel like I'm going to be sick. Flint laughed, a genuine sound. That's normal. Courage doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do what's right anyway. Is it over? The hard part. Yeah, Morrison will fight the charges, but with the evidence we have, he's not getting out of this. Flint paused. But the aftermath, the rebuilding, that's going to take longer. Sloan nodded. She had known this wasn't a fairy tale. There would be no happily ever after. Just the slow, difficult work of healing. What happens to Cole? Flint's expression grew complicated. That's up to him. He betrayed his own father. Some people will call him a hero. Others will call him a traitor. He'll have to figure out who he wants to be. The crowd began to thin. News vans prepared to leave, carrying the story of Cedar Creek to every corner of the country. Sloan found herself alone with Flint for the first time all morning. There's somewhere I need to go, she said. Will you take me? Where? To see my mother. The cemetery was small, tucked into a hillside at the edge of town. Rachel's grave was in the back corner, shaded by an old oak tree. Flint helped Sloan transfer to a portable wheelchair they'd brought for rough terrain. Together they made their way between headstones until they stood before a simple marble marker. Rachel Marie Harper, beloved wife and mother, 1975-2022. Sloan stared at the dates. 47 years. Her mother had only lived 47 years. I used to come here every week. Sloan's voice was barely audible. After the accident, I'd sit here for hours, talking to her, telling her about my day. When did you stop? About a year ago, Dad said something one night when he was drunk about how I was probably happy she was dead because now I could pretend to be normal. Sloan's hands tightened on her wheelchair. After that, I couldn't face her. Flint was silent. But I think I understand now. He wasn't really talking about me. He was talking about himself. He was the one who wanted her to be normal. And when she died being exactly who she really was, he couldn't handle it. Sloan reached out, touched the warm marble headstone. Hi, Mom. It's been a while. Flint stepped back, giving her privacy. But Sloan found she didn't want privacy. She wanted witnesses. I met Uncle Flint. He told me about who you really were, about the motorcycles and the singing and the grandmother I never knew existed. Her voice cracked. I wish you'd told me yourself. I wish you'd trusted me with the truth, she paused. But I understand why you didn't. You were trying to protect me from the parts of yourself you were ashamed of. The wild parts. The parts that didn't fit into the life you'd chosen. Sloan looked at her hand, at the silver ring with the turquoise stone that Wyatt had given her that morning. Her grandmother's ring. The one piece of her old life Rachel had kept. Here's the thing, Mom. Those are the parts I love most. The parts that made you throw yourself over me when the headlights came. The parts that made you willing to so I could live. Tears streamed down her face, but her voice grew stronger. I'm not going to hide anymore. I'm not going to apologize for surviving. I'm going to be loud and visible and inconvenient. Everything you were afraid to be. She straightened in her chair. Because you were right about me. I do have thunder in my heart, and I'm done letting anyone convince me to be quiet. The wind rustled through the oak tree. For a moment, Sloan could have sworn she heard her mother's voice, singing an old country song about wild hearts and open roads. I love you, Mom. To the moon and back, around the stars and home again. She sat with the silence for a long moment. Then Flint appeared beside her, hand on her shoulder. Ready. Sloan took one last look at her mother's grave, at the name carved in marble, at the dates that seemed far too close together. Yeah, I'm ready. They made their way back to the motorcycles. The sun was setting, painting the Oklahoma sky in shades of orange and purple. Wyatt was waiting when they got home. He'd cooked dinner, something he hadn't done in 3 years. The smell of roasted chicken filled the house. They sat down to eat, moved around each other awkwardly. Two people relearning how to share space. I went to another meeting today, Wyatt said quietly, while you were at the courthouse. Second one in a row. That's good, Dad. They made me talk about Rachel again, about how I handled her death, or didn't handle it. He took a shaky breath. The man leading the meeting, guy named Frank, been sober 30 years. He told me something I can't stop thinking about. What? He said grief isn't something you get over. It's something you learn to carry. And the people who try to put it down, who pretend it doesn't exist, they're the ones it eventually crushes. Wyatt met her eyes. That's what happened to me. I tried to put it down, and it crushed me. They sat in silence. Then Wyatt stood, disappeared down the hall. When he returned, he carried something wrapped in soft cloth. This was your mother's. He unwrapped it carefully. A leather jacket, black, supple, patches on the shoulders. Flint gave it to me this afternoon, said Rachel wore it the day she left her old life behind. Sloan took the jacket with trembling hands. It smelled like old leather and memories and the ghost of a woman who had loved too hard and hidden too much. He wants you to have it, Wyatt said, not because you've earned it or proofed anything, just because you're family. Sloan ran her fingers over the worn leather, her mother's jacket, evidence of a life lived boldly even when that boldness had to be hidden away. She put it on. It fit perfectly. Wyatt's eyes filled with tears. You look just like her. Good. Sloane's voice was steady. I want to be like her. The real her. Not the version she thought she had to be. After dinner, Sloane wheeled herself to the window. Outside, the stars were coming out. The same stars her mother had watched from the back of a motorcycle decades ago. The same stars Sloane would watch for decades to come. Wyatt appeared beside her. What are you thinking about? What Flint said about living, really living. Sloane turned to face her father. I spent 3 years surviving, getting through each day, waiting for the pain to stop. But surviving isn't living. It's just existing. She looked back at the stars. I want to live now, really live, go to school, make friends, fall in love, make mistakes, all the things Mom wanted for me, all the things she gave up so I could have them. I'd like to help, if you'll let me. Sloane reached up, covered his hand with hers. I'd like that too. They stood together at the window, father and daughter, watching the stars emerge one by one. Somewhere out there, Flint was riding through the night with his brothers and sisters. Somewhere Cole was trying to figure out who he wanted to become. Somewhere the people of Cedar Creek were talking about what had happened and wondering if things could really change. And here in this small house on this quiet street, Sloane Harper was finally ready to begin. Not the life her mother had chosen for her, not the life her father had expected of her. Her own life. Wild, visible, unapologetically loud. She was done being the girl nobody wanted to see, done apologizing for surviving, done letting fear decide who she got to be. She was Sloane Harper. She had thunder in her heart, and the whole world was about to hear it, because in the end, that's what her mother had given her. Not just survival, but the courage to live. And living meant being seen, being heard, being exactly who you are even when it's terrifying. Sloane touched the ring on her finger, her grandmother's ring, her mother's jacket, her uncle's promise. She was not alone. She was never alone, and she was just getting started. The pancakes at Dusty Trail's diner would taste sweeter tomorrow. The ramp to her house would feel like a bridge instead of a barrier. The wheelchair would be a tool instead of a prison. Because Sloane had learned something her mother spent a lifetime discovering. You couldn't outrun yourself. You could only decide whether to hide or to roar. Sloane was done hiding. Done. The thunder had come. Cedar Creek had heard it, and the sound would echo for years to come in every person who found the courage to speak when everyone else stayed silent, in every victim who refused to be diminished, in every voice that rose when the world said, be quiet. Rachel Marie Harper had thrown herself across her daughter 3 years ago, choosing in one split second to give everything so Sloane could have anything. And now Sloane understood. Her mother's gift wasn't just life, it was permission. Permission to be wild, to be loud, to be exactly who she was meant to be without apology or explanation. She stood at that window in her mother's jacket with her grandmother's ring catching starlight, and she made a promise. She would live, really live, not carefully, Not quietly, not small. She would live with thunder in her heart, and anyone who didn't like the noise could cover their ears, because the girl in the wheelchair who'd crawled across a dirty diner floor was gone. In her place stood a woman who knew her worth, who demanded dignity, who refused to be invisible, and Cedar Creek would never be the same. The stars shone above, the wind whispered through the Oklahoma plains, and somewhere in the vast mystery of whatever came after, Rachel Marie Harper smiled. Her daughter had found her voice, and it was magnificent. Thunder and lightning and wild, untamed song, exactly as it should be, exactly as it was always meant to be. The end was really just the beginning, and Sloane Harper was ready for whatever came next. Bring on the storm. She was born for it.